Well, I think we'll get started. So thank you everyone for joining. My name is Jessica Daczo. I'm here from Chicago, and we're so excited to have Susan Francia here with us today. She was born in Szeged and moved to the United States as a child. She learned perseverance and hard work from her immigrant parents and used it to fuel her quest to become an Olympian. As part of the USA women's 8-person boat, she successfully fought for an Olympic gold medal in both the 2008 Beijing and 2012 London Olympics. She also won 5 world championship titles before retiring in 2014 to pursue her MBA degree from UCLA. She uses her degree and sports experience to work in business development at a biotech firm in San Diego. And she enjoys motivational speaking and loves to inspire people with her Olympic stories of success and failure. So, Susan, thank you so much for joining. We're so excited to have you.
Hello, everyone. Sziasztok.
So we have several questions prepared, but if anyone thinks of questions during the event, we might have time for questions from the audience. So feel free to send me a chat and I'll see if look at the questions at the end. So first, let's start with why we're all together. We all have some type of connection to being Hungarian. Can you tell us a little bit about how being Hungarian has impacted you?
So growing up, my parents, said that keeping up the language, the tradition, everything was really important. And it's not until I've been in my, 20s and 30s that I realized just how grateful I am that they kept instilling this in me. And I think that one of the biggest things is that, in my opinion, it makes us kind of special because we're, united to a group. And I know that the US is this wonderful melting pot of so many different backgrounds, but it's really cool to be able to pinpoint this like one spot and just identify with, a people, a group. And for me also learning the language, and it's not an easy language, but just maintaining that within the family was also really important to us. And, now I'm really happy that my parents, that they made me learn Hungarian, and that's what I did on the weekend. And even at my softball games, my mom would yell to me in Hungarian, and sometimes I would be embarrassed, but now I'm like, oh man, that was really cool actually. So yeah, that's pretty much my answer.
That's great. I think being Hungarian, like you said, it's such a unique thing in such a big country, and I feel like it's always my fun fact that whenever someone asks me for one. So you mentioned a little bit about your mom being there for you at your softball games. What else did your parents do to help you develop your competitive drive?
I think just seeing them in their everyday, the ups and downs and some of their struggles. And when we came to this country, we, didn't have much financially, but to see them constantly working and made me really appreciate their work ethic. And I think that kind of speaks even to many Hungarians in the kind of the Hungarian culture is like, you put your head down and you grind, and that's how you achieve the success. And once you determine what that goal is, you pursue it. And I think many of you, may have heard of my mom, Kate Carrico, Catalin Carrico. And she was just the same way. And for her, it was science. For me, it was athletics. And now in my career in biotech, but just really just kind of establishing that goal and doing what I could to get it.
That's great. Thank you. You've had such a diverse career. You've been an athlete and you found so many things that you're passionate about. Can you tell us more about how you've developed those passions and found those things that you're excited about?
Yeah, so I've been in, just always wanted to be involved in all sorts of different things. And actually in San Diego, it kind of helps that we have this great weather, but there's also, you can be involved in rowing and also all sorts of different outdoor activities, and also even going back to school. I think it's really important to just, be well-rounded. And so even though sometimes I'm pegged as like, oh, the Olympian or the athlete, I also, people don't even know I played the saxophone. So just like having a lot of different things just kind of helps with, your thinking, and gives you sometimes like a fresh perspective.
That's great. Thank you. Um, so with having so many things to balance and finding those different things that you're passionate about, how do you keep balance in your life and find that proper balance between everything?
Well, now I'm not doing anything competitively. So now it's okay for me to not be perfect in any one thing. But when I was training for the Olympic team, then I really had to prioritize rowing. There it was like, okay, people are getting married, or there's this family event or that, or something seems fun, or I want to, do something career wise. It was like, mm-mm. There, when you have that Olympic goal in front of you, that's it. That's your one track. But now after the Olympics, having a career in biotech, and then also starting a family and still trying to be fit and speak, it's much easier almost, because and in my mind I have to just remind myself like, okay, I don't have to be the best at all of those things. I just have to make sure I'm enjoying them.
That's great. Thank you. You mentioned the Olympics. So many of us, most of us, I would say, haven't ever really been to the Olympics or really seen more than just watching it on TV. Can you tell us about your favorite Olympic memory?
Yeah, actually, so my favorite Olympic memory happened in 2008, and it was the day after we won. So, leading up to Olympics, it's just like so much like pressure, and you're very focused. And even when you're there, it's like, okay, cool, this thing's going on, but like I need to be focused. So once we won, it was like such a relief, and you can party a little bit. And the day after the Olympics, I was in the Olympic Village, and I had met Dwight Howard, who was this NBA star. This guy's like 7 feet tall, which, you guys don't see me. I'm 6'2". That's pretty damn tall. But for me to see a guy who's that much taller than me, I was like, holy crap. So I met Dwight Howard, and I was like, hey, guess what? Like, I won gold yesterday. He's like, oh, no way. I don't believe you. I'm like, no, here it is. So I actually brought out my medal, which there you go, 2008 Olympic gold. And he was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. And he was just like holding it and looking at it. And this was in the Olympic Village, and Kobe Bryant walked over, and he was like, hey man, where'd you get that from? Because he's looking at Dwight holding my medal, and Dwight's like, oh, it's hers. And he's like, oh, hey, who are you? And I was just like, holy shit, oh my God, is this really happening? So I was like, hello, I'm Susan. Nice to meet you. And he's like, oh, hey, I'm Kobe. And all I could say was, I know. It's just such a crazy moment to have both of those guys then looking at my medal. And, hindsight, I was just like thinking, like, these guys who make millions and millions of dollars, and in rowing, we're lucky to make like $20,000 in 1 year. But, it's not the money that excites us, right? So it was really cool to have those two guys who have so much going for them and media and everything to be looking at like the one thing that I had that they didn't yet, because they weren't done. So that was probably one of my favorite stories. And they did go on to win their own gold medal. And I like to think that it was really my inspiration that that really propelled them to success. It was me.
That's so exciting. I can't imagine how much excitement that would be to see someone, you've only seen in pictures or on TV and see them in person and talk to them. With being in competitions and the Olympics, there's so much pressure to stay fit and like you said, be perfect and be the best. How do you deal with that? Or how did you deal with that pressure while you were going through it?
Um, Honestly, I felt like the competition I had with my teammates to even make the boat really fueled me. And like I'm a very like one track. I'm like I need to win. That's just so even those pressures internally and then once I made the US team, those kind of pressures externally and also media and everyone being like, "Oh, are you going to win the gold? What's going to happen?" Um, it really, all of that didn't even matter because we were just so focused on like, I don't even care what's happening over there. Like my goal is to get the gold, so we were just really hyper focused on that race and being our best self to win.
It's great. And so, I mean, with great success also sometimes comes failure. How do you deal with failure and what advice do you have on the best way to deal with failure?
Yeah, I'm a pretty sore loser, to be honest. And I think that's what also makes me a good like winner, I guess, is like, all right, I don't want to lose. Um, but even with the failures, a lot of times I made sure that I was using it as a learning opportunity. And even though I'd be down on myself and like, oh crap, like, you know, maybe there was a race I didn't win. Um, it was like, okay, let me analyze why I didn't win. Like, what can I do better? So that next time I'm the winner and not, the person who's in second or third. And we had plenty of losses too. But I just made sure like I kind of kept my emotions in check and moved on and tried to use that as kind of fuel or inspiration.
Thank you. So how do you continue to keep motivated and keep finding that drive to keep going forward and being the best at whatever you choose to do?
Yeah, well, now it's a little bit different, right? Because I'm balancing those things. And now really the motivation is different. And now the motivation is fun. It's like, okay, do I want to go out for a run? Like, yeah, actually, I know it's going to clear my mind. And when I'm tired of running, it's okay for me to walk. So, really, just kind of finding that balance of like, okay, I used to be super competitive, and now it's okay for me to just slow down a little bit. And believe me, it's been hard because, in my head, I'm always like, okay, we need to time this, or the coach, what's the coach going to think if I start walking? And I have to be like, okay, deep breath. No one cares. No one cares if I walk.
Great, thank you. And what advice do you have for us as young professionals or students trying to find something to be excellent at and trying to find that one thing that we're passionate about?
I would say, especially starting up a career, it's gonna be a grind. It's not gonna be that dream job that like and every once in a while, sure, there are exceptions that someone right out of college or in their second job finds that, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing I've done, and they're paying me so much money. But usually that's not the case. And I would say that you just gotta stick with it and you have to sometimes just keep grinding through even a situation you don't like, because I think there's a lot of like learning opportunities, and sometimes you just learn about yourself of like, okay, hey, I stuck with it and there was this big project and shoot, it was really hard, but hey, we got through it and I learned, certain things. I would say the other thing is keep challenging yourself. uh, as soon as you start to get a little bit complacent, that's almost when you just kind of you don't keep advancing. That was a big thing with my mom, and she started to see some success throughout her career, and that's always when, you know, a door would close, and it challenged her to be better. Like, okay, well then I need to, you know, prove myself even more. And I think, you know, if she'd had a little bit easier track or easier road to success, I don't think she would have achieved, you know, what she did. So I would say grind it out and challenge yourself.
Right. And going back to your background a little bit, you made the switch from being an athlete to going and getting your MBA and starting at a biotech firm. So how did you make that decision to pivot in your life at that point to and choose that direction?
Yeah, actually, a lot of my teammates ended up coaching afterwards, and I did too, and it was very helpful. It was helpful for me to put things in perspective. Okay, oh man, I always thought my coach thought this, but now that I am a coach, oh, they actually, you know, weren't thinking that at all. So coaching really helped me, and it helped in my leadership as well. But I knew that that wasn't something I wanted to, you know, be in the rest of my life. And I always wanted to go back to school. So once I retired, I was really excited to start applying to business schools. Um, my undergraduate was at University of Pennsylvania, and I got a degree, BA in sociology of law. And so part of me also was like, okay, I had a BA in sociology, and I also was an athlete for 10 years. Like, and I need some more, I need some help here. So with the MBA, I just figured it would be a good like quant base and kind of help propel me. Yeah, so it was a sometimes a difficult transition, like in my first final. And I don't know, most of you guys who are just fresh out of school, you don't appreciate this too much until you go decide to go back to school. But I was taking my first final, and I was like writing, and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't taken a test in like 10 years. Holy shit. And I was like having this total midlife crisis, and I'm looking around in the room. I'm like, is anyone else here having a midlife crisis? And I was like, no, everyone's working on their tests. Okay, I better focus. So, you know, it was definitely a transition, but I'm really glad, you know, it was again one of those things that sometimes I had to grind it out, and it wasn't like fun per se, but it was definitely worth it.
Absolutely. And in terms of, uh, oh, I lost my train of thought. I was going to ask, what skills have you brought over from being an athlete to your professional career now, and what are those things that you find as an overlap um, that help you be successful right now?
Continuing on with this kind of theme of grinding it out, I am really good at not complaining. I know that sounds dumb, but but just really, if I'm given a task, I do the task. And if I need help, I'll ask for help. But even if I don't want to do the task, or, you know, whatever, it's a project that like seems kind of dumb or whatever, it's like, okay, this is, you know, it's almost like coach telling me what the workout is. Hey, the workout's gonna suck, but you know, we're gonna do it anyway. And so it's just kind of that mindset of like, you know, grinding out some of these little bit harder projects, or and there's been a lot of writing that we've been doing, like contract writing. And I've noticed that my superiors then end up really rewarding me through these tough situations, because they'll recognize that, hey, this isn't, oh, we have to give it to someone. Here, Susan, take it. But then, you know, in the end, I've been rewarded. So I would say that's one thing. And also learning how to work as a team. Rowing is a very, you know, all about teamwork. If I am pulling a little bit faster, a little bit slower, moving ever so differently, even if I'm pulling my ass off, if we're not going together, all 8 of us aren't pulling together, the boat's not going to go. And so just learning how to work with different personalities and different, you know, types of people has been a really big advantage.
Thank you. I really like the point of having the positive mindset. I think my parents have heard me complain about work so many times that they could probably do my job. And I think, keeping that positive mindset is so important to get through the days and the tasks that might seem or feel annoying at the time.
Yeah.
Um, so we do have a question from an audience member. What how has your MBA helped you in your current role?
So my MBA has helped me with a lot of terminology around the business. Everything from accounting terms to just leadership terms. And it's not that I need to know exactly what everything is, but just the familiarity. So that's been one aspect. And also having the MBA on my resume was huge, to be honest. A lot of companies asked for a certain number of years of experience, but having the MBA actually kind of negated some of that. And they were like, oh, well, great. Yeah, you have an MBA. So, you haven't done some of this other stuff, but that's okay. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. So in a couple ways, even just the title has been pretty helpful. And then having the contacts also helps. When I was rowing, I only knew rowers. And then when I went back to school, it was great. I met people from Google, Apple, Pandora. I met people who were in the Air Force and military. So it was just good to get a new diverse group of friends too.
I've heard that it's very helpful for building that network and building those connections as well. Another question from the audience is what is your view on student athletes being paid as a student or as an athlete yourself?
Yeah, I don't think I would have made even a cent as a rower student athlete. Yeah, it is kind of crazy though how much money is to be made by those higher authorities like the NCAA. But I don't know, I think it's a slippery slope though, because I don't know, there are just so many other elements and other, you know, crazy things that can happen if you entertain the idea of paying athletes. But I think it would be kind of cool if they could have sponsorships. I know even some of my teammates who ended up at the Olympics but hadn't finished their collegiate career when they went back to college had to give back things that they were given at the Olympics. So some of the rules are a little silly, but
Thank you. We're getting close to the first half hour. So those were all of the questions that we had prepared. If there's anyone in the audience that has any more questions, please feel free to send it to me. But with all that being said, Susan, do you have any words of wisdom or any advice for us young professionals starting out our careers or in the beginnings of our careers?
yeah, I think the other big thing is to use, and I used to mentor students who were, fresh out of college who were interested in biotech. And one of the big things these days is LinkedIn and just having a really good, sharp LinkedIn profile. That's one big thing. Another thing I would say is don't be afraid to use your connections. Um, the, Having connections and having someone else introduce you is always good because that person can be an advocate on, or speak on your behalf. So that's always helpful. I would say that's a big plus. Um, what are some other things? Also, let your personality show, because sometimes in interviews, even people a lot of times will answer the same questions, but if you kind of are able to stand out or find something in common with the interviewer, um, those are kind of things that people will remember.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. After this, we will have a networking event. You're more than welcome to join. And there's also, as Boldujar mentioned, we do have a LinkedIn that people can join as well.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, definitely. I will come and look at everyone's LinkedIn. I'll give you guys some feedback. Better look good. Have a cool, and have a nice cover page on there too, that you can do a cover banner. If people can spend as much time as they do on Instagram and all these TikToks and whatever, you can also make a nice LinkedIn.
Absolutely.